Yan! What's up everyone? Happy Monday sa ating lahat. I hope everyone is doing well. It is the first day of the week and I hope we are all pumped up to learn and discover new things. So because of that, since offline tayo for 3 days, I decided to upload my PowerPoint presentation so everyone can just watch it at the comfort of your own homes, diba? So I feel that some of you are already waiting for an online discussion for our first module, but given the situation we have right now, eto na muna ang ating approach, no? Lakas maka-podcast no? But anyways, again, I'm happy that you're watching this now. I hope you watch it until the end dahil I will be getting a lot of inspiration from this discussion for our upcoming offline activities like the quizzes. Okay? So let us begin. I hope you are ready now. Let us discuss the first module of our subject. It is entitled Science and Technology in the World. So for today, at the end of this module, you should be able to understand the meaning of civilization and what characterizes a civilization. So what are the features? What qualifies a civilization? Identify the earliest forms of civilizations that existed. Analyze how scientific revolution is done in various parts of the world like Latin America, East Asia, Middle East, and Africa. And we will also be talking about their notable contributions to the world. And finally, describe the development of science and technology that occurred in Arabia, China, and India. And at the end of this module, we'll try to answer a few questions, and I hope that we can internalize and reflect on these questions and how important civilization is. Okay, so before we begin, it's important that we understand the meaning of civilization, the cradle of civilization. Okay, it says here that it's a location where civilization is understood to have emerged. Ang Tagalog ng civilization ay kabihasnan. Cradle, duyan ng kabihasnan. Saan ba mula ang isang kabihasnan? Now, scholars have defined civilization using various criteria, such as the use of writing, cities, a class-based society, agriculture, animal husbandry, public buildings, and such like architecture. So we will go through these features shortly. However, there is a current thinking that there was no single cradle. Ibig sabihin, walang natatanging isang pinagmulan ng kabihasnan. However, there are several civilizations that developed independently. Okay? Kanya-kanya silang nabuo. Okay? Without the dependence on one another. With the Fertile Crescent, the ancient India and the ancient China understood to be the earliest. So ito yung kumbaga top 3 na unang recognized na form of civilization sa buong mundo. If you will notice there, the ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, it's called the Fertile Crescent. Why? Because yung shape nung geographically, the shape is like a crescent moon, and that part is fertile. Okay? Arable yung lupain. Ibig sabihin, mataba, the people are able to reproduce there. Okay. Now, what is civilization? As you can see here, the meaning, it's a complex society that first grew from the development of cities after the Neolithic Revolution. The term Neolithic is similar to the agricultural revolution that brought far-reaching changes to human life resulting from the beginning of farming. Okay, now there are certain characteristics of a civilization. So we cannot just qualify a society as a full-blown civilization unless it meets these features or characteristics, and our scholars, many historians agree that with the presence of these characteristics, a civilization can be called as such. Okay, unang-unang dyan ang advanced cities. So dahil nga fertile ang lupain mo, you can produce a lot of food, and with that surplus of food, dadami ang tao, which can lead to the formation of cities. Another characteristic is monumental architecture and unique art styles. Shared communication. Now, this communication can be in the form of spoken or unspoken. Okay, spoken language like the alphabets, numeric systems, signs, ideas. And then there's also the unspoken language, which are the pictographs, like illustrations and representations. Another characteristic is the infrastructure and administration. Of course, all civilizations had some kind of, or had some form of bureaucracy or government. Division of labor. Well, of course, nung lumaki ang mga syudad or mga societies, so did the need for specialized workers. And then the class structure. Now, this idea, it can be broken down into two parts. Depende, ang class mo can depend on your income and the type of work that you perform. Okay? Again, these are the 6 characteristics of a civilization. So, where were these ancient civilizations? Again, we are talking about ancient civilizations, okay? So they were scattered all around the globe. I have here the world map, and this is just a simple illustration of where they were located. So we have here the Mesoamerica, in South America. We have here the ancient Egypt in North Africa, the Mesopotamia, which is the present-day Iraq and Kuwait. We have the ancient India and the ancient China. Okay, these are the ancient, I am highlighting the word ancient, very sinauna. But that doesn't mean that there were no civilizations in Australia, in the Philippines, or in the North America. These were the earliest recorded civilizations in the world history. Okay? So these are the civilizations that we will discuss. The Mesopotamia, ancient India, ancient China, Egypt, and Mesoamerica. And if you would notice the brief description of each of these civilizations, there is a common denominator or common ground among these civilizations. If you look closely, these are civilizations that were born along rivers. Okay? There is a river that became critical to the development of these civilizations. Ang Mesopotamia, it was born due to the help of Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Same with India and Egypt and China and Mesoamerica. Because these rivers made the soil fertile around the banks, and the rivers could also supply fresh water to irrigate crops. Sabi nga nila, di ba? Wherever there is water, there is life. Alright, so let us begin with the very first ancient civilization. We go ahead and discuss Mesopotamia. So, this civilization was formed on the banks of the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, and what is today considered as Iraq and Kuwait. Now, the term Mesopotamia came from the Greek words mesos, which is middle, and potamos, which is river, and it literally means a country between two rivers, referring to the two rivers, namely Tigris and Euphrates. Now, various evidence shows that during this period of time, there was already an extensive use of technology, of literature, legal codes, philosophy, religion, and architecture, which we will discuss shortly. Okay? Now, the Mesopotamian civilization was so extensive, okay, mahaba yung kanyang timeline, that it covered various empires, which included the Sumerian, the Assyrian, the Acadian, and the Babylonian civilization. So these four empires or civilizations, overall, they are collectively known as the Mesopotamia civilization. So we begin with the Sumeria. Okay, so Sumerian civilization, it was considered as the first ever recognized form of civilization. Imagine 6,000 years ago. Alright, so southern Mesopotamia siya. Okay, so they developed one of the first written scripts called the cuneiform. Okay, so these are marks or writings pressed into clay tablets, sa mga pinatigas na clay. And these scripts were also used or adapted by the surrounding peoples to write their own languages. Now take note that these scripts were more pictographic, to show meanings and not sounds. So hindi siya phonetic, just like the alphabet that we use today. So the cuneiform was more of pictographic. It shows pictures. Sumerians also used writing to record sales and purchases, to write letters to one another. And in fact, the invention of the wheel was also noted to the Sumerians. Religion was also present during this time of the Sumerian civilization, and although there was no specific religion, the religion there was polytheistic. Okay, with the word poly, okay, meaning multiple. So Sumerians worshipped multiple gods, many of which were anthropomorphic, meaning to say they took human-like form. And temples to these gods were constructed atop massive ziggurats. Yan, ito yung mga pyramid temples, which would have taken thousands of people and many years to construct. Now, the Mesopotamians believed na itong mga ziggurats na ito, it has a purpose, and that is to connect heaven and earth. And its purpose is to get the temple closer to the heavens and provide access from the ground to it via the steps. Let me show you an example of a ziggurat. So how many ziggurats still exist as we speak, and where? So today about 25 remain, mostly found in southern Babylonia, in present-day Iraq. So the best preserved is the one on the left, the ziggurat of Nana in Ur. Okay, you see how massive it is? And while the largest is found in Chonga, Zanbil in Elam, which is present-day Iran. So yung ziggurat of Nana, it looks so massive, pero parang elongated siya, no? Or medyo stretched lang siya. Pero yung ziggurat, it's tall, mas madami yung steps niya. And then there came the Acadians. So the Acadians, they already had cultural interchange with the Sumerians. Kung ang Sumerians, they live in the southern Mesopotamian area, ang Acadians naman ay sa north. Okay? And one of the most popular ruler that ever came from the Akkadian Empire is Sargon. So he came into power and established what might have been the world's first dynastic empire. Yes, so he ruled for 100 not he, but his empire ruled for 180 years. Now, what was the contribution of the Acadians? The Acadians set the benchmark for all subsequent regional empires in terms of administration, temple building, military resilience, historical record like record keeping, and the arts, which includes poetry and culture. Okay, so again, we have the Sumerians, which was followed by the Acadians. After the Acadians came the rise of the Assyrians. Okay, they came into power after the collapse of the Akkadian Empire, and they were dominant for 1400 years. So, ang Assyrians, at the height of its might and power, it included all, or the parts of Iran, Kuwait, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. So you kind of imagine how big the area covered by the Assyrian Empire. The ancient Assyrian kings were most well known for their brutality, but they also had other cultural accomplishments. Now, the Assyrians were also credited with a great many achievements through their timeline. Imagine 1400 years. Imposibleng you can't have a contribution to the world during that period of time. So they had practical inventions like locks and keys, paved roads, use of iron, plumbing, flushing toilets, and the sexagesimal clock, the beginnings of the way without time today. Okay, thanks to the Assyrians for their contribution. And then finally, the very last civilization under Mesopotamia comes the Babylon. Okay, ang Babylon was just a minor city-state in central Mesopotamia, but things changed when Hammurabi came, or when Hammurabi ruled Babylonia. So he's considered one of the greatest emperors of the Babylon Empire. He introduced taxation as well as the Code of Hammurabi, which included 282 laws with scaled punishments. Highlights the word na scaled punishments depending on the social status. Dito nagmula yung ating kasabihan na an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Pero hindi siya ganoon, it was not practiced as it is. Again, highlighted on the word scaled punishments. Depende pa rin sa social status mo yung magiging punishment. For example, if a person from a noble class broke an enslaved person's arm, magbabayad lang siya ng fine. Magmumulta lang. Pero kapag ang noble person, he broke another noble person's arm, then the offending noble would have their arm broken. So, dun na pumapasok yun, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Okay. And included in the slide is the Code of Hammurabi. This is a preserved Code of Hammurabi. You see, it's not phonetic. It's more of pictograph, and this has been deciphered by many inscription tools. Okay, and then we proceed to ancient Egypt. Okay, so kung ang Mesopotamia, they have the duo of Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Sa ancient Egypt naman, it was the Nile River that was critical to the development of this civilization. So, Nile River, it's a long river. I think it's about 8,000 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken. And it covers 2 or 3 countries. So, the Nile River Delta was also an ideal growing location for the papyrus plant. So, we all know that this is a common knowledge that paper was invented, it was discovered, it was first used in ancient Egypt. So, this plant was used in making cloth and boxes and rope, but by far its most important use was in making paper. Now, just like the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians also kept written records using a writing system known as the hieroglyphics. You see, I have included here an image of a sample of a hieroglyphics. Just like the cuneiform, it is also a pictograph. No. The Nile River flooded annually. Taon-taon, nagbabaha, tumataas ang Nile River. And this flooding was so regular that the ancient Egyptians set their 3 seasons. So, na-anticipate na nila. So, they called the seasons the inundation or the flooding, the growth, and the harvests. And today, about 95% of Egyptians live within a few kilometers of the Nile. But if you will ask, does the Nile River still flood today? It no longer floods. Back in the 1960s, a 4-kilometer long dam was built. It's called the Aswan Dam. It's about 110 meters tall. So that prevented the Nile from flooding. Ancient India. Okay, so ancient India, the Indus River Valley Civilization, which was also called as the Harappan civilization, it extended from modern-day northeast Afghanistan to Pakistan and northwest India. So you see in the image how massive the Harappan civilization was. Also quite massive. It covers a portion of North India. And important innovations of these civilizations include the standardized weights and measures, seal, carving, and metallurgy with copper, bronze, lead. Is it lead? Lead. Sorry. Lead and tin. Okay? Napakayaman siguro talaga ng lupa diyan sa part na yan because it's a tropical area. No? And then there's a portion of desert then sa kabila sa may eastern part. Right. Now, unlike the Mesopotamians and the ancient Egyptians, although meron tinatawag na Indus script ang ancient India, it was not deciphered even up to this day. And because of that, very little is understood about the Indus script. And as a result, little is known about the Indus River Valley civilization's institutions and systems of governance. So I have included here an image of the Indus script. So that's just the interpretation, but how it was deciphered, the message of this, it was not clearly it was not found out. Parang hindi na it was not found out. It was never deciphered. And this civilization likely ended due to climate change and migration. See? Likely. So imagine, even climate change was already present several thousand years ago. At its peak, the Indus Valley civilization may have had a population of over 5 million people. So imagine 5 million people, that's the peak of the Indus Valley civilization. Now, the Indus cities are also noted for their urban planning, a technical and political process concerned with the use of land and design of the urban environment, which you will see later on. They are also noted for their baked brick houses, elaborate drainage systems, water supply systems, and clusters of large non-residential buildings. Okay. Now, these are the well-known cities of ancient India, the Mohenjo-daro and the Harappa. Okay, so we have here the images. Now, unlike Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, the inhabitants of the Indus Valley civilization did not build large monumental structures. Okay? So, wala silang masyadong temples, walang palaces, or even kings, armies, or priests. And perhaps the largest structures that can be considered were just granaries. Granaries. Ano ba yon? Yung mga tambakan lang na mga food. Okay? The city of Mohenjo-daro contains the Great Bath, which may have been a large public bathing and social area. In fact, if some of you have already watched documentaries, even today, India today, they have public bathing area. Another theory posits that there was no single ruler during the ancient Indian civilization, but rather a number of leaders representing each of the urban centers. Okay? Alright, okay, we are now with the ancient China. Okay, this is actually good. The modern scholars do not see the origins of the Chinese civilization or history as a linear story, but rather the history of the interactions of different and distinct cultures and ethnic groups that influenced each other's development. Okay, what does this mean? Ibig sabihin daw, hindi siya katulad noong sa Mesopotamia na nauna ang Sumerians, sinundan ng Acadians, sinundan ng Assyrians and Babylonians. Sa ancient China, it's a collection of isolated cultural communities. Okay, yung collection siya, and then it became a set of organized states, which eventually they grew together around the idea of a single unified state, and then nag-expand sila to include contact with other civilizations. Okay? But there were three notable civilizations in the ancient China. These were the Yellow River civilization, the Yangtze civilization, and the Liao civilization. These are names after the rivers in ancient China. Well, even they are still existing today, no? The Yellow River, the Yangtze River, and Liao River. Yangtze is the longest Chinese river, followed by Yellow River. Ang Yellow River is in the north part of China, and then while the Yangtze is in the southern part. The Yellow River Valley began to establish itself as a center of the Paleogang culture, which flourished from 7000 to 5000 BC, with evidence of agriculture, constructed buildings, pottery, and burial of the dead. So, ang naging development ng ancient Chinese civilization with agriculture, it came increased population. Okay? And with increased population, there was a need to secure and defend the society, and then societies were ruled by people, and then soon after, the community established schools in order to unify beliefs, articulating what it meant to be Chinese. So yan ang naging progress ng ancient Chinese civilization. Alright, lastly, we have the Mesoamerica. Okay, I have here the map of Mesopotamia. Sorry, that's not Mesopotamia. That's map of Mesoamerica with borders of modern day countries. You see how massive it is. You see? That's covering pretty much the entire Central America. Okay, so Mesoamerica refers to the diverse civilizations that shared similar cultural characteristics in the geographic areas comprising the modern-day countries of Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Belize, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. So some of the most well-known Mesoamerican cultures are the Olmec, the Maya, the Zapotec, Teotihuacan, the Mixtec, and Mexica, or the popularly known as the Aztec. Okay, now these are the contributions and the achievements of the Mesoamericans. So they were the first people to build a calendar that was based on the cycles of the sun. Pero of course, since hindi ganun ka-advanced ang kanilang science, they were just tracking the movement of planets and stars. They came up with a 260-day calendar. When it comes to farming, they used fertilizer to help plants grow. And in fact, sa kanila din ma-attribute yan ang system of terraces or steps to grow crops on hillsides. They also figured out how to preserve their food in the cool, dry weather. Now, when it comes to architecture, they also built huge temples dedicated to their gods. And one interesting fact about the Incas is that they also built suspension bridges with rope that made it easier to travel. Now, this Mesoamerica civilization, it likely ended due to a number of potential reasons like drought, overpopulation, environmental degradation, and shifting trade routes. So I have here an example of a Mayan temple, okay, made out of limestone cut out by stone tools. So imagine the perseverance, the dedication and industry of the ancient Mesoamericans to come up, to design, to finish and complete this kind of temple. Napakaganda, no? And then another on the right slide, we have here the last known Incan suspension. Take note, this is a suspension bridge made out of grass and woven by hand. So the Mesoamericans, they did not invent the wheel. They were not the pioneers when it comes to plumbing. They were not the firsts when it comes to the use of iron and lead. Pero they were the masters of fibers. Okay, so that's it. That's a quick run through of the ancient civilizations ancient civilizations, and that was a glimpse of it. We were able to tackle the important and notable contributions that they have for the world today. And in this slide, I'd like you to internalize and reflect on these two questions about what would happen if we as a civilization were still primitive and without technology. Okay? Magkakaroon kaya tayo ng longer lifespan that we are enjoying today? Given the lack of technology, will it be more difficult to provide the basic necessities? And if it is the case, do you think that people will be competing for food and land? How about that? How would today's humans fare if all technology disappeared and we had to live like primitive times? That's a good challenge, no? Imagine, would we die? Would we perish? Will it become a survival of the fittest? No, mala action film, kumbaga. So these are big concepts, big questions that we should be asking ourselves. If not because of these ancient civilizations, perhaps we wouldn't be where we are today. And we owe it to them a lot of whatever that we have, whatever that we are today, it's all because of these ancient civilizations. Alright, and that will be all. That will be a short coverage of our very first module. I'm actually very looking forward to discuss this online, and however, given the circumstance that we have, I had to do it this way, but nevertheless, I'm hoping that you learned a thing or two. If there are any questions, feel free to send me a message, and on our next discussion, I think before we proceed with module 2, I'll be asking you some questions perhaps, or if there are any questions, feel free to let me know before we start the discussion on module 2. Okay, I hope you made it until the end. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Until the next module, and have a great day. Enjoy your Monday, and God bless. All right, thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.